through LendingTree. So I just want to break down all of the different elements that go into social media because you wear a lot of hats as a social media coordinator, specialist, manager, strategist, whatever they want to give you as your title. So there's a lot of compliance and legality that goes into social media, whether that's making sure your images are copyrighted correctly. So I work full hand with our compliance department at Wyndham Capital Mortgage. Granted, our legal team is probably bigger than most industries, given the industry that I am in. So that way I can make sure that the content we're putting out isn't saying anything we're not allowed to say, which in the mortgage industry, there's a lot of things you cannot say online. For instance, when we were building out our new website, we didn't ensure that one of the photos was licensed to us, and so we were fined $500 for using someone's property on our website without their permission. So these are all things you have to consider. That's why I make a lot of our images in-house, just to ensure that it's not, going to cost the money to the company or cost us any reputational risk. And so that's kind of, we're going to skip down to graphic design and branding comes in. Everything you post on social media represents the company, so you need to make sure that you keep all of your branding cohesive, whether that's with your traditional print marketing. Your digital marketing should also reflect that. You also should pull off of elements from your website as well. So there's another kind of hat you wear when working in social. You live and breathe by content calendars because, like I said, you have to make sure that what you put on social media is compliant, grammatically correct, AP style, all that fun stuff. So it's always best to schedule your content ahead of time and then adjust your schedule as needed throughout the month. And there's all different formats you can do, whether that's the platform you're using, it's compatible with that, or just one you prefer. Now, I use HubSpot at work, and I love their content calendar format, so that's the one I use. And so there's also advertising. So basically in any social media job you have, you're going to be doing advertising. Facebook ads have a much better return on investment than traditional ads have in the past. So you can't really measure how many leads you convert off of a TV ad, but you can measure that directly off of a social media ad. So yeah, that's a big part of my job as well as developing advertising for your company. So that could mean you're working with an advertising agency or you're developing it yourself, you're in-house. And then copywriting. So, I spend probably half my day writing, whether that's blogs, whether that's captions. It's a lot of writing, so that's a huge skill you're going to be using in social media. Analytics. Now, since I report directly to our SVP, who reports directly to our CEO, essentially all the reports I make get directly handed over to our CEO. So I have to make sure that they're accurate, that I'm pulling all kinds of analytics, maybe translating what those mean to someone who doesn't work in social media, like what is reach, what is engagement, why is that relevant to our company and our brand. So you'll be putting together reports. And then project management. There's all kinds of different things you'll be doing when you develop content. So maybe you're not the one developing the videos that you're posting on social, so you're going to be working alongside of a lot of other people. So maybe you have a graphic designer in-house, maybe you have a videographer in-house, maybe you're working with an outside agency to complete a project or a campaign. So it's a lot of time management, working alongside others. I work a lot with our developers because they develop landing pages for me for our social media ads. So there's going to be a lot of people you work with, a lot of things you kind of bring together in order to execute something online. And then a big element of social media is content marketing and then the inbound methodology, which I'll kind of go into in a second. What I'd really like to know before we move into the more of the theory-based stuff is what your majors are, because I know this is communication, so each of you probably come from a different background, and all of those backgrounds kind of get pulled into social media. So we can start. Yeah.
Public relations.
Public relations. Mm-hmm. PR.
Electronic media and broadcasting.
Yeah. Okay.
Electronic media, broadcasting, nutrition.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's good. Healthcare is a big industry.
journalism.
PR? Awesome. I was a public relations major as well, a leadership minor, but that's not really relevant. I just am a leadership nerd. So inbound methodology. So basically what I kind of want you all to understand here, I'm not going to go in depth into it today, is social media is a tool companies use to drive consumers to their brand. So whenever you post on social media, how are you incentivizing a person to interact with your brand, with your company, with your product? So for me, how am I getting people to finance their mortgage through us at Wyndham Capital Mortgage? And so how are you attracting people to your website? How are you converting leads? These are all things you need to think about when you're posting and generating content online. And this is a big element of digital marketing. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard of sales, outbound methodology. So it's like you're trying to sell a product to someone and convince them to buy it. Well, now we have the internet at our hands. And so people are able to inform themselves about a product or are able to inform themselves of what they need along the way. So no longer are necessarily we considered the experts of that product, of that industry, because they have so much information at their hands. So how are you as a company providing information for them to use in order to create an informed decision on what product or what service or company to go with? And so this kind of model, this kind of mindset is what you need to think about when generating content in the digital marketing world. So content marketing, it's a type of marketing that involves the creation and sharing of online material, so like I've mentioned, videos, blogs, social media posts, that does not explicitly promote your brand, but is intended to stimulate interest in its product or services, or it's intended to inform the consumer about something they may not know. So social media is an integral part of content marketing. So how do you create great content? So whenever I go to create something, I'm thinking about what that thing is targeting. So maybe it's Susie, who's 30, who is buying her first home, and she's a single mother. Or maybe it's a first-time home buyer who happens to be a millennial. Or maybe it's Jim and Bob, and it's their second home, and they want to refinance their mortgage to see if they can get a lower monthly payment. These are all things I think about when generating content for our blog or for our social media. And I manage all of the pages for our loan officers as well. So I'm generating content for their borrowers, for their clients, for them to read, informational content. And so when you think about these different personas, you have to think about the journey they're taking when they decide to interact or buy a product. So the awareness stage is where they're kind of thinking about, we've been in this home for 30 years. I really feel like we could switch over to a 15-year mortgage and pay it off sooner. So now I want to start looking into how do I make that happen. I'm going to go online. I'm going to Google search. I'm going to look at different mortgage companies. I'm going to start looking at different blogs that tell me what's the difference between a 15-year mortgage and a 30-year mortgage. And these are all things you don't have to think about anytime soon. I don't own a mortgage, and I work in the mortgage industry, so. So that's the consideration stage. They're gathering their information. Now they may interact with a loan officer who is a salesperson along the way, but more and more you'll see what they call smarketing, which is sales and marketing kind of combining together to bring that outbound and inbound methodology together. So I work a lot with our sales team to help them understand this kind of process that buyers are going through. And then they're going to reach a decision stage. And so that's when you kind of move into the selling point of like, how are you selling yourself as a brand? What's incentivizing them to work with you? Is it because we're a green lender and we care about the environment and that's a huge part of who they are as a person? Maybe they really enjoyed that interaction with their loan officer and connected with them on Facebook and decided, well, I'm going to go with Mark. He seems like a really trustworthy guy based on the content I've seen on his Facebook and the personal stuff he chooses to share. So these are all things you think about when generating content. Yes?
So do you find yourself researching other companies a lot?
Constantly. Movement Mortgage is the bane of my existence. So have you all, who's heard of Movement Mortgage? I'm sure most people. No, I'm sorry. I work in the mortgage industry, so this is what I live and breathe daily. So Movement Mortgage is a multi-billion mortgage industry that has just kind of taken over how mortgages work and really humanize the process. A big part of Movement is their brand and how they want it to seem like it's a great place to work, and they really care about their employees. They do a lot of consumer social responsibility. They have their own foundation. They're building a charter school in Charlotte. I'm just bitter because they stole a few things off of my social media. They're huge, and so their marketing partner is genius. I'm constantly looking to see what are they doing that's effective, that people are engaging with. I'll also look at our competitors like Guaranteed Rate, Quicken Loans. Quicken Loans is another huge one. But within my business manager, you can set it up on Facebook to look at different brands and kind of watch them. So, I mean, on a typical day, the first thing I do when I get in the office is look and see what's trending on social media, what are other companies posting, what kind of campaigns are they doing, or past campaigns are done. I also look at other financial institutions as well, because mortgages, finances, they kind of overlap, so similar industries too. And that, like I said before, that'll depend on your industry or whatever you're getting into. So healthcare, you can look and see what other major hospital networks are putting on their social media. Are they implementing Facebook Live? Is it working? That's a big thing this year. And then also researching what new platforms are coming that are big, that might be something you need to take advantage of. This year, Facebook Live is the big new thing to do to make your brand stand out. However, due to the legality of the industry I'm in, I do not utilize Facebook Live. So, excuse me.
One more question. So
Mhm.
when you research them and you find that, let's say they just started a new promotion, do you then try and respond to that? Is it then your job to be like, all right, now we have to create one?
You
Or-
can. It really just depends on your industry or whether they're a direct competitor. And you'll get more. You'll understand that more based on the longer you're in that industry and managers you work with and such. So I do not do that with Movement. And you will see brands stealing your ideas. I've caught it 3 times where exact word for word what I've posted has been taken by a brand. So.
I have a question. Did you
Yeah.
say you were brokered by LendingTree?
Do I see what?
Did you say you were brokered through LendingTree?
Yes,
So
yes.
what
In
do
fact,
you,
our CEO came over from LendingTree to form
what do you
Wyndham.
do for them, or what do they do for you?
leads. So basically, all LendingTree is a lead provider, essentially, and so we work directly with them for leads. So we're one of the top 10 mortgage companies that work alongside them. And then half of our company came over from LendingTree with our CEO. So we just have really close ties to LendingTree. So. And not every industry is going to be lead generated like mine is. So I've probably said the word lead several times. So for us, we gain our money based on whether we get someone to close and fund a loan with us. And so we want to generate leads. So our goal online is generating leads. If you're working for a nonprofit, which I've done a lot of pro bono and freelance work for, that's going to be donations, brand awareness, maybe an educational campaign. There's going to be different goals based on the industry you're in. And brand awareness is a huge part of social media as well. Mm-hmm.
I have one more question.
Mhm.
You talked about Facebook advertising.
Yes, I do feel, yeah.
So can you tell us more about that? You bid within category, you bid for a price for click-through. Is that how it works with placing ads?
It's complicated. It's a super complicated. In fact, Facebook now has an advertising certificate that you can do. It just came out in January. There's one that costs like $150. I just recommend doing the Blueprint e-learning, which is free. Also looks great on your resume. And they're really easy. Because it basically just guides you through a lot of common sense practices and then shows you how to apply them to Facebook. So I do cost per click just because my marketing director doesn't want to. We use Velocify for our leads. We don't use like Salesforce or a traditional lead software, and so we can't use like lead generating ads on Facebook because they'd rather use like our own in-house created landing page, which is really fun for me. So the bidding process is really just once you throw it out there, then you kind of figure out now, granted, it's not competitive in my industry, so our ads are very cheap because I'm only really competing with Quicken and Movement. And a lot of the other smaller mortgage industries like mine aren't utilizing advertising. So,
But you maybe can't tell us what are you paying for a click-through?
I just started the campaign this month, so I haven't done the analytics for it. Whereas before we had a digital marketing manager who handled it. So, I mean, but generally they're pretty cheap, like 10 cents. Like the most you'll ever pay is $1 to $3, and that's because you made a really, really bad ad that's not getting a lot of click-through. So, and that is literally what goes into the bidding process. Is the quality of your ad is one element of it. So.
Thank you.
Okay. So you're gonna hear, I'm sure you've already have a bunch of different softwares, platforms kind of thrown at you. Are any of you taking social media strategies or have already taken it? So I know you do, or I did when I was a student, a Hootsuite University certification, which is great for your resume because really the company you may apply to may use a different software, but as long as they can see that you're comfortable with some kind of platform, then that's going to make you hireable. However, it's always good to know and be aware of the different ones out there. Like I said, I utilize HubSpot. Now, HubSpot is much more than just social. HubSpot is a CRM. Does anyone know what a CRM is? Client relationship management software. So HubSpot is kind of one of the leading softwares, I would say, in the marketing industry because of all of the different products it provides within it. So we can manage our website, we can manage our blog, we can manage our landing page. We can do so much more than a lot of other softwares can. Whereas something like Sprout Social is just social media management. But say we didn't utilize HubSpot where I worked, say our website was hosted through WordPress, then something like Sprout would be great because I manage about 80 different Facebook profiles on a daily basis because all of our loan officers have their own Facebook profile. And in order to ensure that the content is compliant, I post for them, even though no one knows that. But depending on where you work, it could be different. Some companies like for you to post directly through Facebook or directly through Twitter because whenever you use a publishing software, you can see in very tiny script where it's being published from, and some companies think that doesn't look well for the industry. These are generally smaller industries or smaller companies. I know I interviewed for a realty office where they didn't like that I like to use publishing software because they wanted it to seem organic because realtors work one-on-one with their clients. So these are just different things to keep in mind. And then based on the company or industry you're in is what kind of platforms you're going to be utilizing a lot. So I don't use Snapchat at all. It's not relevant to my industry. So that's not a platform of social media that I use. I mainly just use Instagram to cross-post any Facebook ads we do, and then just to paint a picture of what it is in the day in the life in Wyndham and for corporate recruitment. And then, so the main thing I use is Facebook and then Twitter. However, I'm sure as you've seen in the news, Twitter's stock has been declining. It's not as effective for lead generation, I would say, as Facebook. So because of my industry, I spend most days on Facebook. So that's going to vary though. So like I was saying, I utilize HubSpot. I also think it's a really great resource for learning. There's all kinds of free classes that they offer, including a new content marketing certificate that you can get. And these are all good things that you can do in your free time to add to your resume that look great and make you stand out to employers. So I would definitely take advantage of that. They have a HubSpot specific certification I wouldn't bother with that shows you how to use the software specifically, but you could be working for an employer who doesn't utilize HubSpot. What I would take advantage of is the inbound methodology course and certification that they have, and then the content marketing, because those are two things that are going to be relevant to whatever industry you're in if you're working in digital or social. So, yeah. But I just wanted to open up the floor now that we've kind of gotten an idea of a day in the life in social, and see if y'all have any questions for me or.
I'll ask, don't know what else wants to ask. So even if you pay a subscription fee, those type of dashboards are still impregnating their own identity into it?
Yes.
Really? And it's small, but
It's
you can see
you can't see it. I think it's not very relevant, but I've had, like I said, an interview where they were very adamantly against it. Then that's very rare, very rare. Mhm.
So you mentioned that you've had some issues with people like stealing your content. When that happens, do you like reach out to them and like request that it gets taken down, or like when people
No,
are,
because it's not copyrighted.
Okay.
So if it was copyrighted, yes. So for instance, when when I first graduated, I went and worked for a Parks and Recreation department that I'd worked for years. I'm still on their payroll. It's pretty bad. But so my first job was with them. So when I graduated, they offered me a temporary job to help with increased programming, and so I took over all of their social media. And they do a food truck rally. And the man the year before who had run the food truck rally owned a commissary, which is where all the food trucks come and prep their food before they go out so they can get their sanitation scores. And he had been fired, but he had created a Facebook page that had some of the town's branding on it, and he refused to delete it or hand it over to us. And so for that instance, because our logo was copyrighted and he was using it on our page, we were able to file a legal suit through Facebook to get him to delete the page. But however, if I put a caption out, that's not copyrighted. There's nothing I can legally do. It's just tacky, I think, for the other company to obviously steal your ideas. So. And that's something you should keep in mind too. It's okay to look for inspiration for other companies and see what your competitors are doing, but don't ever copy what they're doing. It's not going to look good for you as a brand. Mm-hmm.
So social media is like always a constant cycle. How often when you're not at work, are you still at work? Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, my company's smaller. It really depends. So if you're working for a bigger brand, there's going to be community managers for social, and that's a position where you literally just do customer service responses. So if it's a big brand, like let's say Wells Fargo, that's a big brand competitor for us in the mortgage industry because they're a huge national bank. And so they're going to have community managers that literally sit on and respond to clients on Facebook. Now, granted, we don't get a lot of those. Granted, since this year, I have not received any negative things from borrowers on our social media that I've had to respond to or do any kind of crisis management with, but I have had those in the past. And the minute those pop up, I'm on my laptop checking who's the loan officer on that case, and sending out emails and trying to figure out how we can rectify a solution so we can make sure it's transparent on our page that the problem was solved in a quick and timely manner. I have a strict rule that I only check it once, just because my company's a little smaller. I believe in a work-life balance, and so I'll only check it about once or twice while I'm outside of work. Whereas if you're working for a bigger brand, you're probably going to be checking it more often.
This might be a little unfair to ask, but would you say that there's a certain category, like all of it, that you're better than the other categories, and then how would you get better at it?
Yes, graphic design used to be my biggest weakness, but I was kind of thrown into it because we did not have any branding for online stuff. And it's so funny when I look back and see the stuff I used to put out when I first got started there. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's hideous, Sarah. Why would you ever do that? But and then to see, just it's really practice with our graphic design. I would think the more comfortable you are with the software, the more research you do on how to create different things. But graphic design is definitely my weakness. And then I would say strength, copywriting, and writing. PR was my major, so I like to write. Any question? Yeah.
So that's the other question, but I just thought about this with my personal social media.
I feel like I should sit.
Do you also, I'm assuming you also have your own personal social media?
Yes,
How does
that is a good point.
Is it weird? I don't know what question I'm trying to ask, but just you work with social media and you also have your own social media. So you just always feel like social media is just
Well,
your life.
that's an interesting question because I've literally had a job interview where they asked me to send over my personal social links. Now, granted, it was a position for a brewery, so that's a little more community-based, a little more laid-back tone of branding. So they wanted to see how I represent myself on social as well as like how I represent a company because what I do on social now is extremely professional. And so I didn't get the job, but it's okay. So I think it's important if you are considering a career in social media to make sure that, you think about how am I putting myself off as a brand on social. When someone visits your Facebook page, when someone visits your link, I don't even know if you all use Facebook, let's be real. But if someone visits your Instagram or your Twitter, how are you portraying yourself as a person? Is it obvious what your interests are, what you like to do outside of, your work? These are all things employers are going to consider too when they look at your personal social media. They want to see that you're using correct grammar, that you've engaged the people on your social media as well. And they're going to want to see how you are able to use that creativity in your personal social media. And then because they know that those skills are then going to transfer. And that doesn't mean you need to have 1,000 followers on your Instagram page. I mean, I'm an old lady. I have like 500. I don't even know. So, but, they want to see that I'm putting out engaging content. So, definitely think about those things when it comes to your social. This is something I tell my loan officers as well. Like, when someone goes to look up Mark Taylor, the loan officer, they're going to look and see his personal social. And I had one loan officer who had a white tank top on, a 3 for Dale tattoo drawn on his arm, and a handlebar mustache drunk at a NASCAR race as his profile picture. And I was like, I really hate that I did this to him, but I did it. In a presentation, I put that picture up, and I said, if someone saw this picture online, do you think they would want to finance your mortgage with you? And everyone was like, no, unless they really love NASCAR, And so, these are all things you need to think about with your personal social. Now, granted, you don't need to have a professional headshot on all of your social media, but it should still be something that's clean, I guess is the best way to put it, And if you're 21, you can have a beer in your hand in a picture. It's okay. Just don't be slinging shots at a strip club. Yes?
So a lot of our classes, we kind of go back and forth between Instagram account, whether it's private or it should be public. So which would you suggest? Because
For your personal social media?
I have a link to my Instagram account on my website, but it's private, so it's really pointless.
Yeah. Mine's public just because I volunteer with a camp for kids with Tourette syndrome, and they all follow me on Instagram anyways, so I watch what I put on there to begin with, because I have a mom syndrome. Just look at my hair. But and so if you want an employer to look at it and it's linked on your website, I would make it public. Also, you can practice making connections or that kind of B2B connection. Has anyone know what I mean when I say B2B? Business to business. It's as obvious as it sounds, but sorry. So business to business interactions. So, when I got a new pair of hiking boots for this big hike I'm doing, I I like to kind of play around and tag brands and see how they interact with me. And that's a fun thing when you work in social media. But if your account's private, you can't kind of have those interactions to see like what responses they put, whether they like your post. Some of them will offer you promotions or discounts if you tag them sometimes. And then you can kind of see what, if you're doing hashtags, you can see if you gain new followers, who's liking your page based on a hashtag. So that's just a fun way to practice. And if your profile is private, you can't do that. Now, another thing I've heard, which I don't practice, but I wish I did in hindsight, is having a private just for family accounts on social, and then having a public, and then having a public like professional one. And that's something you can do as well.
I was just gonna comment on that too. Something that one of my friend's moms is like CFO of her company, and she says that like even if your Instagram is private, they can find it like in a second. So it's like they have those resources to be able to like I don't know hack through the system,
Mm-hmm.
or like they have just like crazy like people that are really good at that stuff. So
Developers.
even if it's private, it's like not really private.
They're really fun to work with. They're fun people. I love ours. Yes.
You mentioned getting certifications on HubSpot. Like, how long do you also study on that website, and how long does it take?
It's a course. So what I love about HubSpot is they literally have professors and videos that go through the content with you. Now they're not legitimate professors that have degrees and went to school, and but they're professors through HubSpot that teach the courses, and there's guided notes, all kinds of things, and then you take quizzes at the end of each section, and then there's a test at the end. It's super interactive, and it's and they're so enthusiastic. Like I love all of the different ones, and then there's Justin, who just developed the content marketing course, and he's really fun. I really like his coursework as well. And then they have master classes as well that they'll randomly, once you complete your certification, they'll send over master courses you can do that keep you kind of fresh and up to date. And I just think that's one thing that like Hootsuite tries, and they do offer webinars and different things, but I think HubSpot really stands out in terms of how they've kind of humanized their courses and their learning. So. Also, a lot of people are starting to utilize HubSpot. It's a big software, so having it on your resume as an entry-level person is going to really help you stand out. That you're aware of it and that you understand the inbound methodology is going to be key. Are any of you considering nonprofit? Yes? Awesome. I've done a little bit of that. I would say the big thing to keep in mind is like coming up with fun ways to get them to interact with what your cause is, and then thinking of creative ways to get donations that aren't just donate here, we need your money. And that's fun. That's where a lot of content marketing comes into play. So for instance, for Camp Twitch and Shout, the camp I work with, I do all of their social media pro bono, and we did like a Swear to Change campaign that talked about how only 10% of people with Tourette's curse, and that's called corporalia. Well, yet, society has stigmatized it to believe that everyone who has Tourette's syndrome curses incessantly. And so we did a campaign centered around that, encouraged people to have swear jars at their home or in their office, and every time they curse, to drop it in the jar, and then we were able to raise money through that. So that's always fun. Fun thing to do within nonprofit. I don't know, what time is it?
1:42.
We have so much time.
What?
We don't have to just be related to social media if you guys have any other questions for me. I'm actually interviewing for a job, Health Education Center, doing marketing. Hope I get it. It's in Asheville. That's where I want it.
Where do you feel you learned most of your social media experience?
At work.
Was it in your first job?
At work. I took social media strategies, and that was a good foundation, I would say. but it doesn't even cover half of what you need to know. Granted, I took it with Dr. McCorkindale, who's no longer here, and so I don't know if the coursework has changed at all. I know it's Matt, what's his name? Van Dyke is teaching it, and I got to sit in on a class that was fun. And then what's the other professor teaching it? I can't remember her name, but I'm supposed to sit on her class as well. But so I don't know if it's changed, but honestly, it's hands-on experience. I got some experience. I was in apps, just like Haley, and we all managed the social media there. I did an internship with Hunger and Health Coalition. Are you interning with them? You did? Oh, that's so wonderful. I was like, okay, so my friend Amanda is actually the one who created that position, the internship. So yay, Amanda. And she was in apps with us too. And so I was like the second intern there, and it's kind of cool to see that they're still doing it. So yeah, that's awesome. So that's where I got some experience as well. Was just on campus through my internships, and then helping out that my Parks and Recs keeps, which it's just like the show, if you're wondering. It literally is. My boss is Leslie to a T. So. Yes.
What other softwares do you feel you need to learn to?
Softwares?
Yeah.
Like I said before, I wouldn't focus on specific softwares because you just don't know what your employer is going to be utilizing. But if you just have basic knowledge, and one thing for digital I wish I had more knowledge in, and I'm going to be taking a course soon on EDX, which is free courses, by the way. Another thing to take advantage of is coding. I wish, but I didn't take any courses in college that taught me coding. And so I cheat and copy and paste, or have the developers send me over the code I need. And so I would just basically just basic knowledge. If you do the Facebook Blueprint courses, those are going to look great. Having any kind of experience with a publishing software is going to look great. And then just adding some of these. Oh, my thing went away. HubSpot just method courses onto your resume as well is going to look really good.
For your job, how long would you say you're on a computer or something?
Every day, all day.
All day.
All day. It has been an adjustment. Before I worked in social media, I was an event manager or venue coordinator for the Mint Museum. And so that was much more client-facing and on my feet, running around like a crazy person and working weddings and to different things. And then I did digital marketing on the side, freelancing, like blogging and stuff. But I made the decision to switch over to digital full-time and leave events because I'm not a traditional student. I graduated when I was 24. So I've worked in the service industry and events prior to getting my degree, got out of college. First job I landed obviously was where my resume was strong in, and but what I really wanted to do was more of a traditional marketing job. So that's where I am today. We do get up and walk around sometimes and have meetings. But that could vary as well based on your industry. If there's events you need to be at to take pictures, that could be a thing. I know I have a friend who works for Lennar and does their digital and so she's always at open houses and on the road, going to different charity events that they do. My industry is an online mortgage lender. We wear jeans and sit around the office every day, so it just really honestly depends.
Do you ever do like marketing in the community, so like flyers or like old-fashioned kind of thing?
I do internally for our, because I'm on the culture committee for our office, but no, that was more past jobs when I was working with nonprofits. A position I'm interviewing for currently is more of that traditional stuff. Because though I've loved being in social media, I really want to get back into traditional marketing and do more design work now that I'm not terrible at it. And so those are kind of jobs I'm applying for right now.
You go run the class
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Um,
I was just trying to kill time because I know this is like my next session's not till 3. So.
Did I have any last questions or anything? So we'll give Sarah a round of applause.
I even dressed up for y'all. It's like I said, we wear jeans every day.
I've heard that a lot today, actually.
Yeah, you will find the communications field in general is a very relaxed dress. Like, whenever I wear this jacket to work, my boss says, "You look so nice today, Sarah." Thank you.
Well,
Oh, yeah,
are
this
any of you guys seniors this week? Yeah. We'll definitely bring up the social tonight at 5 p.m. in Sladen. Everyone will go. All the best of the best.